son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your info for the Pocono Gander Outdoors 400 for what NASCAR has created as what can best be described as a dumpster fire of a week from a fantasy NASCAR perspective. Yes, kids, this is another situation where NASCAR put post-inspection right after qualifying, and we had 13 cars that didn't make it through qualifying, and we'll talk about those 13 coming up. Liehr?
Pretty interesting fact is 4 of those 13 are Coca-Cola Racing family drivers. But no, for the real interesting fact here about Pocono is that it is only one of 3 tracks not owned by Speedway Motorsports or International Speedway Corporation. NASCAR started racing here in 1974, and Richard Petty was the inaugural winner. But real interesting is that shifting didn't come into play until about 1991 when Mark Martin started shifting into the 4th gear on those long straightaways that they have here at Pocono. And this method basically provided a broader RPM range for the cars around the track, and overall lap times decreased. So, they had a lot better lap times. So pretty interesting.
Another fun fact, Mark Martin is only one of 2 drivers to wear a hairpiece in NASCAR. Huh?
Who's the other one, Matt Kenseth?
I don't remember. I heard him say it on TV. I honestly do not remember. Stages for this week's race are at laps 50, lap 100, and then we'll race all the way to the finish at lap 160. We'll have cloudy skies and temperatures in the mid-70s when we go racing at 2:45 Eastern on NBC Sports Network. As we stated earlier, there is a cluster screw, is one of the best ways to put it, of guys that are really good talent starting from the rear of the field because NASCAR wanted to mess with our qualifying procedures. And this is creating a fantasy NASCAR nightmare. Liehr, I'm going to go ahead and list off the 13 drivers that are starting from the rear of the field, and then I'll ask your opinions on what to do with this mess that we have before us.
Give me the plethora, brother.
Okay. First of all, understand that of the 13 cars that failed inspection, 12 of them failed inspection at least twice. Rowdy Busch was the only one to make it through inspection after the first time. He will start the top of this group, starting 28th. Then you have the fastest car on the track, Kevin Harvick, starting 29th, who failed inspection at least twice. Joey Logano starts 30th. Clint Bowyer starts 31st. Kyle Larson starts 32nd. Ryan Blaney starts 33rd. Almirola will start 34th. Jimmy Johnson will start 35th. Paul Menard starts 36th. Austin Dillon starts 37th. Billy Byron starts 38th. Bubba Wallace is starting 39th, making him even a play at a track where he maybe wants to shift. And Casey Kane is starting 40th, making him a play. Liehr, every one of these guys is a play in my opinion. It's trying to fit as many of them as possible into your lineups this week. Do you have a differing opinion?
Yeah, brother. Awesome to be back with everybody this week. But I think it's very, very interesting how NASCAR kind of went about to do this because, obviously with the big 3 that we have this year between Truex, Rowdy Busch, and Kevin Harvick, those guys have majority of all the wins. And, this is one way for NASCAR to mix it up, to kind of catch the drivers, quote unquote, with their pants down after they qualify, prior to making the changes before they qualify. So it mixes things up. And I think it's great for the sport in general. It makes it more interesting this weekend to watch it tomorrow. But from a fantasy perspective, it just makes you go, because honestly, man, it's almost like we're going to a restrictor plate track and you're like throwing a dart at a dartboard, trying to, pick the guys that you want. But I mean, clearly this is a track with only being 160 laps that we're going to be putting a lot of the emphasis on place differential this week. Now, getting most of these guys in your lineups, you're going to have to pick and choose your battles because no way you can get all of them in your lineup. But 2, even then, do you really want to go 6 out of those 13 in your lineups, and then hopefully one of them will get all the way up to the front? I think you got to have a little bit of a mixture this week with some of the top end guys and some of these place differential guys. But at the same time, too, salary is going to be a huge thing for you as well. Man, it's going to be tough goings this week. And I've got some guys that I really, really like, and other guys I would love to play, but I have to force myself to fade them and fade at your own risk. And I think a lot of the players out there, when they put lineups together this weekend, are going to find that out the hard way. And hopefully you made the right decisions. And, end of Sunday, you're sitting pretty with a bunch of money in your DraftKings account. But, man, way to throw us a curveball, NASCAR. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not saying thank you at all. Like, this is ridiculous. And we've got 5 of the fastest cars on the track this week, starting from the rear of the field. And they're starting behind the likes of Kyle Weatherman, Greg Alding, Jeffrey Earnhardt, BJ McLeod, Reed Sorensen, Timmy Hill. That is absolutely absurd and is just a recipe for people to wreck. Those cars behind them are so much faster than they are. It's not even close. If NASCAR is all about safety, this is a terrible precedent to set that is dangerous for drivers on the track. It's bad enough when they have to pass these guys, but to do it at the beginning of the race when they're all way faster is a recipe for disaster. And I know NASCAR will say they don't want that, but it does drive up ratings. It's just, to me, I understand what they're going for. I think this is a terrible way to do it. And
yeah, and I mean, honestly, they want a different winner, and they just want to mix things up a little bit and penalize those teams that are, taking the ranges and going too far out with them, and making them have to work their way for it. And like you said, it makes it for better, interesting racing, and keeps the people's attention on the TV, and people getting them to the track. And I think from a NASCAR perspective, it's hiking it up for the ratings, but as far as from a fantasy perspective, it definitely doesn't help out at all.
Well, I mean, dude, but let's be honest. If this is your goal, is to mix things up, then put restrictor plates on the cars at every track. Like, NASCAR doesn't seem to have a problem violating their own rules and changing the rules to suit their mood. So if you're going to do it, why not just go all out? It just seems like a half-assed approach to try to garner some new interest and to try to mix things up. And to be honest, it's dangerous in my opinion. And I don't care for it as a fan, and I don't care for it as a fantasy player. I really don't care for it as a fantasy player. And to be honest, it puts me at a place where I'm not even sure I really want to play. Like, I will play like a lineup at least. But like, I mean, dude, it is total guesswork this week. Absolute guesswork. Like, if you fade the fastest cars on the track and they make it where they're supposed to, right, and Rowdy and Harvick, every lineup you do without one of those guys is just straight drawing dead. There's zero chance if they do what they're supposed to. Or any of the other place differential guys. All of a sudden, your lineups just start drawing dead. And the amount of lineups that are drawing dead, if those guys don't wreck out, right, and move where they're supposed to, just exponentially increases. And you and I were talking about putting together lineups earlier, and we were both running into the same lineups. It's just, I feel like a lot of people are going to be in the same headspace when you try to fit those guys in. And it may be a week where there's a ton of duplicate lineups, and some craziness happens.
There's a little bit of me that agrees with you on that, but I don't think the parity is going to be as much as you think, because there's going to be other people that are going to choose guys that start towards the top of the starting grid, between Hamlin and Keselowski and, Kurt Busch and Truex and, those guys. So I think you're going to have some exposure on some of those guys. And I mean, there's probably even going to be some Daniel Suarez love out there, and Eric Jones, but maybe even some Chase Elliott starting from the 6th position. But, that's where you're going to run into the quandary of the salary perspective of all this and, getting all those guys in there. That's where I think the parity is not going to be the same. And I think, yeah, you're probably going to have quite a few lineups with the same place differential guys starting from that bottom 13. But I think there are going to be other, players out there that realize that that's going to be a very popular strategy this week.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but the problem is we've seen at this track, because of the low number of laps, place differential is such a premium
Right.
that you can fade dominators and be completely okay.
Yeah.
If the right things break. And I think that with the recipe of 13 cars in the back of the field, that's most likely going to happen this week. I could be wrong, but that's what scares me about doing a different lineup than that strategy. But,
No, I hear you. And I mean, that's going to be part of it. And, it's crazy to think that you've got Kyle Busch, Harvick, Logano, Boyer, Larson, Blaney, Almirola, Jimmy Johnson.
yeah.
Those guys right there are just some of the top guys in the sport. And I mean, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, 8 out of the 13 that are top of, at least top 15 of the sport. So pretty crazy.
All right, man, let's go ahead and get into the burning rubber picks outside those guys. I just want to be clear. All of my picks are in that group. Oh, but before we get there, we didn't talk about the one last guy of the big three. The only one of the big three not starting from the rear of the field is Martin Truex Jr. He starts 8th and is about as good a pick as anyone. He has a win here recently. What are your thoughts on Truex before we get into the burning rubber picks?
Yeah, I mean, he won the race here, early part of June, starting from the 4th position, I believe. And, it wasn't like he went out and completely dominated the race. He led 31 laps, but, that's not huge when it comes to 0.25 for every lap that you lead. So with that 8+ place differential there and a chance to lead a lot of laps, I don't know if he's going to be worth it this weekend. Will I have exposure? Yeah, I will. I've got to have exposure on him. But will I have a ton? I don't think so, man. I like somebody else better than Truex this week. Watched it happen. I talked a little down on Harvick last week, and what do you know? He came up from the 14th spot and took the win last week. So
I think you kind of foreshadowed us well into the burning rubber segment. So go ahead and do the honors. I mean, should you do it a little bit more tame though for some of our viewers that it bothers?
This is for you, Barry Wolf. Burning rubber, tricky triangle style, baby. No, I ain't doing that, man. Burning rubber, tricky triangle style, baby.
Oh man, that was fantastic. All
Just
right.
mute it, Barry Wolf. Just mute it, Barry. I appreciate you watching, brother.
All right, man. Who is your pick to burn some rubber this week? You're honestly going to sit there and tell me it's not Truex, it's not Rowdy, and it's not Harvick.
It is not, my man. I'm actually going to be going with Keselowski in the number 2. Obviously, they've been a disappointment as of late with his horrible finish last week at Loudon of 32nd with those mechanical issues that they had there. This team is obviously happy to get out of New Hampshire and welcome Pennsylvania with just some big, huge, open, wide arms. And with the post-qualifying inspection debacle that we've obviously already talked about, this gives Kez the opportunity to get up there, up to the front, lead a bunch of laps. He starts tomorrow from the 4th position and comes with a salary of $9,400 this week. So he's not crazy expensive like the other guys are. Overall, Pocono rates out as Kez's best track that he's raced on. He has 17 starts here with 1 win, 9 top 5s out of those 17, and 10 top 10s. The other interesting fact here is that he's finished in the top 5 in the last 6 consecutive races. And this track ranks out, like I said, as one of his best tracks, but it's his 2nd best track overall underneath Chicago for average finish. Not really sure what direction the rest of the fantasy players are going to go this weekend, like we talked about. But I think the Kez play gets you a guy that will definitely finish in the top 5 with a chance to lead some laps. And he's going to be hungry to get that first win of the season. With most of the community obviously concentrating on pouncing on the place differential guys, and with all the studs starting in the rear, this may make your lineups a little bit different with going with Keselowski this week. And when you add that little bit of place differential, I know it's not a ton, but then you add those fastest laps led, and then you also put in there the position for first place. I think this is a week at $9,400 where you can get Kez at that good value with that good possible ending fantasy point production at the end of the race with some of those other guys, and it's going to pay off for you this week. So I'm going to be rolling a bunch of Keselowski this week. He is my burning rubber, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I like your stats. The problem is that he's not getting us place differential, so he literally has to lead laps and be the fastest car to amass the point total that the other guys can amass. I don't see him doing that. That's not even what his stats that you read off say he does here. Now, if I had to bet on him getting a top 5 finish or a top 10, sure. But I need a super dominator, which doesn't usually happen here. I don't like any of these guys, really. And if I had to pick them, I would pick my burning rubber pick, and that's Denny Hamlin starting second. Now, I realize Denny Hamlin is a major mixed bag here. He has 4 wins, but they were all over 8 years ago. So, as of late, he has 2 top 10s and a top 5 here. But once again, those aren't the stats we're looking for. And in the spring, he had a really awful race, wrecking out and finishing 35th. But this week, my argument is if Liehr's right, that you're just supposed to pick a dominator that could possibly get it done up there with some of the value. Hamlin makes just as much sense as anybody else does. I like the Kez play. I like the Hamlin play. But once again, the math says these guys are not going to outpoint the place differential plays. Now, Liehr might be right, and that makes them lower owned than what they should be. But maybe then people just gravitate towards that. It's making picking the lineups you want really awkward because they don't make sense. And you can't play any of the value that you would normally play. And I mean any of them. And we're going to get to that in just a second. Speaking of which, value time, Liehr.
Hold on, man. You got to give me a chance to rebut on your Hamlin.
Oh, yeah. Rebut on my Hamlin, and then we'll get into value time.
I'll rebut on your ham bone. I mean, I'm not going to have any exposure on Hamlin this week. But, I mean, I do agree with you. I think out of anybody out of those guys starting in the top 10, minus Truex and Keselowski, yeah, Hamlin's probably the guy. I don't see any of the young boys like Suarez and Jones getting up there and staying up there and completely dominating this thing where, these veterans, they can do that kind of stuff. This is Hambone's second best track with his 4 wins. His second best in wins, first is Martinsville, but, it's a guy that has kind of, not been performing where he needs to be. I mean, I had some exposure on him last week, man. I thought he was going to do me right last week, and man, did he sorely disappoint. It's one of those guys that with his salary this week, I mean, it's just a guy that at $10,000, I'd rather save $600 and go Keselowski and get plus those 2 place differential points there where he starts than, going Hamlin and then, wasting that extra $600 that I could spend on somebody starting further in the back. So, but best of luck to you if you're going to be rolling some Hamlin this week.
Well, I mean, the argument is if we're going to bank on people to lead laps and be the fastest car, at least he should be able to get into clean air really quick around Daniel Suarez. That's my argument there. There's nothing else really for it. I think that it makes just as much sense as anything else, and makes more sense, like you said, than Suarez or Jones or some of the other guys that we're going to talk about and kind of make fun of here in a little bit. All right, so before we do that, though, let's talk about the value situation. Liehr, who's the guy you're looking to pick for some value this week?
Well, I mean, since we can't really talk about real value at all this week, since it's all starting way too far up, I have to choose one of the guys starting from the rear. I'm going to be going with Billy Byron as my value play this week. With the home run of Casey Kane starting from the rear, I mean, that's a free square, no-brainer play, boys and girls. So I hope you make that one. But we need to take a look at other drivers who obviously provide good value while producing high fantasy points as well. And in my opinion this week, it's going to be the number 24. Him and that sweet Exalta Imran paint scheme this weekend. Obviously, Byron failed post-qualifying inspection and will be starting from the 38th position. But his cost this week is $6,600, which is average about where he's been all season. But Byron's going to be making his second start here at the Tricky Triangle. He did okay back in early part of June where he started 18th and finished. He's finished 18th and started after starting 16th. He was 6th fastest in first practice today and 24th in second practice. He did not complete a 10-lap average, as most cars did not complete a 10-lap average today in either the first or the second practice. But before post-qualifying debacle happened, he qualified 6th. So he was fast, people. He was fast and was pretty fast. I mean,
pretty fast? Pretty fast?
Pretty exalted paint fast. He will probably be really, really high owned driver, obviously due to his starting position and his salary. But I don't care. I'm going to have a lot of exposure on him, and I think so should you out there, and I'm sure he probably will. I will not be shocked if Casey Kane and Billy Byron both have a 80%, between 70 and 80% ownership percentage.
No, I agree, and I think that's why my value pick, and see, I can do the same thing. I would tell you to play Paul Menard at 6,700 or Bubba Wallace at 6,100, starting 36th and 39th. Like, you see what I mean? They're all guys that shouldn't be starting where they're starting from, and they're way faster than that. That's the best you have at value this week, kids. We're not exaggerating here. Those drivers that we just mentioned are your value. Everyone else that you would normally look to for value is starting way too high up because of the 13 cars that did not qualify. Liehr, do you have any of those guys that you would normally be interested in playing?
As far as the normal value guys?
Yeah.
Well, I'm right there with you on the Paul Menard play. I think it's awesome. Obviously with his salary where he's starting at, definitely makes him a value play for sure. It's just going to be what's the ownership percentage going to be like, because everybody else and their mother, brother, and sister are also going to be saying, oh, he's only, what is he, 6,700 or something like that.
I did mention Austin Dillon starting 37th, right, at 7,100.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's also right there too. But yeah, I mean, Paul Menard, 6,700, and then you got Billy Byron at 6,600. So, both fantastic plays there. I'm not so hot to trot on the Bubba Wallace play again, even though he's starting from the 39th position. Until Bubba can prove to me that he can brake and also shift. But you never know. He may be excited this weekend because he did get a contract extension this week with Petty Motorsports. So congratulations to him. But as far as any of the other boys, the really low flyers on the salaries, honestly, I can't go that direction. They just all start way too high, and everybody behind them are in much better equipment, way faster cars, and it's going to be so much fun to see them all go by them. But the latter half versus the mid-teens, 20s guys, it's going to be fun to see. But no, I can't walk down that path. Only one that I possibly could walk down that path with maybe would be David Reagan, because he does perform well here, and his salary, I think it's $5,700, something like that. But about one of the only guys at that lower tier price point that kind of semi can stay up there and hopefully keep his position, even if he gets 18th, 19th with that -3 or -4 with the position at 5,700. As long as you have the other right combination, I think that play could pay off for you too, and it'd probably be really low owned. So
yeah, Sticky Ricky might be interesting too at 7,600, starting 17th. Like, that's on the fringe for that. I don't know. You have to think like he's getting bumped 13 positions. He qualified 30th.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get to the going to garage plays here, I do want to kind of ring your ear on one that I did find a little bit interesting. But what do you think about?
Wait, dude, where did you get this saying, ring your ear? I've never heard that before.
Oh, I just made it up. What do you think about Chase Elliott? Because he's starting 6th, and obviously he led some laps last week. But man, he is way down in salary this week. He's only $8,400 compared to, where he's mostly $9,000. eight, 80, 9,800, 9,000, 9,300, 9,500. I mean, what do you think about that? $8,400 for Chase Elliott.
No, I mean, it's an interesting play. I put him in the same category as the other youngins, right? The likelihood of them dominating this race is not high at all. I don't see him having a lot of success this week. I could be wrong, but even if he does, I'm not sure he's mathematically can put up the points I need him to. He's close to it, but I mean, he has to get up and win.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting play at a nice kind of semi-value this week.
Right, and it might be a nice way to swerve and get on an island if there weren't an entire staple of Chase fans that play him every week regardless of where he's starting. So
yeah,
that's my only problem with Chase. But, I like where your head's at, and I like that you brought that attention to our viewers. I think it's important to talk about. All right, Liehr, something else that's important to talk about every week is the Going to the Garage segment. This is the segment where we get to talk a little bit of trash on some drivers. Maybe it's NASCAR, maybe it's DraftKings. Where are we going this week? Are you talking trash on some drivers? And if so, who?
Yeah, I'm definitely talking some trash on a driver. I actually going to be going with Jamie McMurray in the number 1 Chip Ganassi car. Not much really to fill you in on this week, but J Mac is one of those guys that obviously has not had a tremendous 2018 season, but he's way overqualified this week, starting from the 5th position with that post-qualifying debacle. This is after he qualified here in June, starting 3rd, but that we didn't have that issue with the post-qualifying issue. He actually went out and qualified that high, but was also my going to garage pick then. He started 3rd and finished 15th, but J-Mac has 31 starts here. He's got 0 wins, 0 top 5s, only 7 top 10s. And for instance, last year he started Pocono from the top 10 both times and finished 26th and 37th. His cost this week is $8,000, but there's just way better fantasy options out there this weekend, boys and girls. And this is one of J-Mac's worst rated tracks. He starts in the top 5, and I'm just telling you right now, just don't even go there, my friends. Just go ahead and put a line through that one.
Yeah, it works. And if I'm correct on what the math shows, I don't think you want to play Suarez or Jones either.
I'm right there with you.
I think those are also good going to the garage picks. But my real going to the garage pick is all of the value. And I mean all of it. I'm seriously sending all of the value to the garage that we would normally play. And the reason why is it is so ridiculous where they're qualified because of this. They all got bumped up so ridiculously high. I want you to contemplate that Matt Kenseth, as bad as that number 6 car has been, is starting 11th. Chris Buescher is starting 12th. McDowell 13th. The Dinger 14th. These are the ceilings for all these drivers. Ty Dillon starting 15th. Has he even finished anywhere close to that all season? Right? These are absurd, guys. Fade them all for the most part. That's why I wanted to send them to the garage. Matty DB starting 18th. Earnhardt 19th. Yaley 20th. LaJoy. I don't think any of these guys can be plays. Galding, Weatherman, Castle, Sorensen, McLeod, Hill. If you put them on your lineup, you are automatically looking at roughly 13 negative place differential points for all of those guys. Every single car we listed off that's starting from the rear of the field, every single one of them is going to pass a majority of those cars, if not all of them. They just have no business being where they're at. Negative 13 points will kill your fantasy lineups. That's why I'm sending all of the traditional guys we would use for value to the garage this week. If we didn't say that they didn't start, that they aren't starting in the back of the field, or didn't give some crazy exception, don't play them this week, in my opinion.
I mean, brother, there's not much really I can add to that. One thing I will say, though, that is interesting to me in regards to that, where you started, and that would be Matt Kenseth. He actually did have a good week last week. He did pay off for all of us last week, so hopefully you listened and used him. But definitely an interesting play this weekend, starting from that 11th spot. Here, just at the early part of June, he was driving the number 6 at that time for Trevor Bayne and started 26th and did finish 13th. So Kind of an interesting play there, except for based off of his salary last week, it went up quite a bit. So it's back up to $7,400 now. So it's going to eat up into your $50K salary. So, but other than that,
right,
yeah.
You can literally save $300 and play Austin Dillon starting from the rear of the field.
Yeah, and I get that, and I understand that. I'm just trying to give people a little bit of a swervish thing here to go off of.
No, I understand. I understand, and I appreciate a good swerve play. I really do. But to me, there's a difference between swerving and suicidal or just downright stupid. And the way the lineups and the way qualifying has pushed us, a lot of the lineup variations, in my opinion, are just downright silly and foolish and stupid, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying any of the ones you came up with, but there's some that I've toyed with where I'm just like, that mathematically does not work, Sean. Like, stop it. That's stupid. And I'm saying that to myself constructing lineups.
Yeah.
So, you know.
But yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just hard to get to a point where I can't play any of those guys this week. It's just they're just all going to get trained this week, and it's not going to be pretty.
Right. Which means you have to pick between Harvick or Rowdy, and you don't get a dominator unless you're doing some weird stuff, because it gets tricky. But anyways, guys, Liehr, hopefully we've given everybody enough information that they can put together some lineups and at least have fun with the race this week. Go ahead and give us last week's winner for the season-long contest, and then we'll do our thank yous and get out of here.
All right, brother. Sounds good. We appreciate you guys watching as always. Sorry we're getting the video out a little bit late, but obviously every single week when Poppa and I discuss when we're going to film, it's just to give you guys as much content and accurate content as possible. Mm-hmm. So with this post-qualifying debacle, we wanted to wait till, 5 hours after or 4 hours after qualifying is finally when everything was done.
Yeah, when we finally got information of where everybody was starting. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just wanted to wait and make sure that we knew exactly where everybody was starting at before we did our video. So, talking about last week at New Hampshire 301, congratulations to DJ Primick, also known as Dakota. He had a total score of 340.25. He had Kurt Busch with an 82. Kurt Busch was an interesting play last week. I did have a little bit of exposure on him, even though he was starting from the pole. He kind of ended up paying off, even though he was finished 8th. But and then he had Kevin Harvick with an 80.5, Casey Kane with a 35, Matt Kenseth with that 31st to 15th. So we're having that 16th place differential at a 45.5, and then Martin Truex Jr. With a 74.25. And he even did it, too, with Bubba Wallace on his line from 27th to 24th with a 23 for that magical 340.25. So 50 points coming his way. And congratulations to you, sir. And thanks for everybody for playing last week. And we got the contest up for this week. So everybody get your lineups in, and let's keep having fun with it. And I believe Wiscoin's lead is down. There's some competition coming up, so I did some of the math today and put the thing together as far as the league, and you got some people coming up on you, Joe Schmidt, so better get your act together this week, brother.
Right, but it wasn't me because I tragically messed up my lineup last week. Bad mistake. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in as always. We love having you. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. We love the interaction with all of you. Have a great week, and let's win some money this week, guys. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm ready to win some money, brother, and let's have fun watching these guys come from the rear. I think it's going to be fun and interesting, and, this is Pocono, the Tricky Triangle, so there's going to be a lot of strategy that comes into play here, too, so, and hopefully we don't get any fog.
Oh, you did that to me. That hurts. That hurts, Liehr. Later, guys.